You know everybody here.
I do, yes.
Okay. Why don't you tell us what you would like to do as editor-in-chief, why you're applying for this job. You can walk us through your plan here, and maybe tell us why you think you're a good candidate to do this.
I'll start with why first. I've been involved with Lexicon since fall of my freshman year, so that's about 2 years now. I'm generally, as cliche as it may sound, I'm sure that you guys have heard this many times before, I am genuinely passionate about literature in English. It's everything I do. I write and read 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I have throughout my entire academic career. I've always been English-centered. And when I found Lexicon and got involved in it, it's been a lot of fun. I've been very passionate about it. And I would love to be able to be more involved in it and, just have any sort of vision I have come to fruition, work with more people, and just give it a broader outreach. So I'll get to the plan next. I just have a few things that I thought would be interesting to do, or some things to keep on going. If we want to start at the top with journal, I think this one's more fun. I think it'd be interesting to experiment with a different journal shape. I know for a while we've been going with a standard rectangle, which is absolutely fine. And I know in the past we've done oblong journals and things like that. Some of the very first original issues, I thought those looked very interesting, and something even more like that. I'd love to see the options that the publisher has that we work with. I'd really like to implement cover art contests. I know we've talked about those in the past, and it's been a little hard to coordinate. And I'd love to be able to have that. It gives us more of an involvement with the staff or whoever's submitting, and also maybe we might be able to work with more like the art majors or wherever those are offered on campus. And then features and other campus publications, I would love to work closely with the Duke or WDSR or any of the other publications on campus, have a literature section or like a featured piece section from our journal. In the Duke, have artists or the DJs at WDSR read poems from our journals on the air, and also have those related to other publications on campus. So for the general and editorial staff, I'd like to keep Aaron's idea of finalizing a schedule by August 31st. I think that that's going to give us a good plan for the rest of the semester. We'll be able to see what everybody's ideas are, when we can work together and things like that.
What do you mean by schedule?
Schedule as in when we're going to meet, yeah, our deadlines and when our ideal meetings would be for selection committees and things like that. Instead of monthly meetings, I'd like to do bi-monthly editorial meetings, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. In the past, to nobody's fault, really, that you can't really pinpoint it to one person, but there's been some communication problems, and I think that with having increased editorial meetings, we'd be able to circumvent that. I'd like to change the selection process, and we are experimenting with that right now. As of this semester, with the spring issue that's going to be coming out, we changed the selection process from, let's say, person-to-person voting, where we do that at the selection meetings. Now we solely only talk about the piece and send out a poll online, a Google Doc or like a SurveyMonkey or something like that. So there's complete anonymity. Anonymity. Super. Always had trouble saying that. It's incredible. So yeah, we'll keep everybody's votes anonymous. It'll also cut down on the length of the meetings. In the past, they've gone for 4 hours plus, where we're there until 12:30. And not that I don't love Lexicon, but I don't think anybody wants to be there that long. There's also, it helps cut down on people's feelings getting hurt, even though they do kind of sign an informal contract that you're submitting your piece to be subjected to some sort of criticism, whether the people criticizing it are using it constructively or not, though we do encourage that. Inevitably, some people's feelings are going to get hurt, and we also want to try and circumvent that as well.
So the process now is not blind?
No, the process, we used to do it so that we'd all talk about a piece at the meeting, and then vote, like, kind of immediately thereafter, say like yes, no, maybe.
Okay.
And then at the end of the meeting, we would belabor everyone's votes and go back over it and make a final decision. But this year, we just talk about it at the meeting, and then you vote on your Google form, and then the editors go over it.
Okay.
And so I think Chris is saying he wants to go further in that direction.
I do, yeah. And doing that mainly, one, to keep, like I said, anonymity, and yeah, thank you, and to cut down on time to make things more streamlined, which goes hand in hand with my idea of trying to change the general staff involvement in the implementation of readers for fiction and poetry. Instead of having face-to-face meetings where unfortunately our turnout's been lower this academic year, I think it'd be more beneficial to send out our fiction and poetry packets online, and then also send the poll with that to keep that kind of idea going. I'm only doing that because we have had lower turnouts, and because of how long they take, and the feedback that we've gotten from the general staff of how long the meeting, like I said, how long the meetings take, people's feelings getting hurt, things like that. And I think that this would also put us more in tune with not that we aren't professional, but a professional literary magazine. However, I do want to keep the student involvement for larger meetings like art or general staff meetings or the art show, because I think those are easier to talk about with, 10, 20, 30 people at a meeting, as opposed to talking about, 20 to 40 pages of fiction or poetry. And then moving on to campus events and outreach, I'd like to keep office hours for anybody that would like our staff to look over their work, which has not been taken too much of an advantage of the last 2 semesters, but I think it's still a good idea. It doesn't hurt to have somebody in the office whenever they can be there in case anybody wants to stop by. I'd love to, along with that, work with the writing center. I know that they're usually the people that the students go to if they need help. I think if the student is doing a more fictitious piece, or like some sort of poetry, I think that if they were to come to us, if we can work with the writing center to have that option, it'd be pretty beneficial. I want to do more literary events at Goomberg, be it found poetry in books that they might need to throw out instead of completely throwing out the book. Use the pages to be able to cut out words and things like that to have some sort of campus event. That students can come and create poetry, blackout poetry, again with books that they might be getting rid of.
I don't know what blackout poetry is.
It's where you get a book, you just a random page, and then you get a Sharpie.
Black out everything but the words you want to save. Yeah.
It's more of like it's more new. It's like this weird visual kind of art that people are starting to do or like to do.
Like a freedom of information.
Yeah.
It's a great action.
Actually, it is. And then along with those, it would only widen our campus outreach and get us more known. I want to do campus-wide emails, if not continue doing them, because I would love to be able to break the sort of stigma that there is surrounding lexicon, that only if you're an English major you submit, which certainly isn't true, as we've seen in the past with science or business or whatever other major has submitted, and we've published them just as much as we've published people from McAnulty. And I'd also like to explore the idea of representatives from each school to be able to send that kind of outreach to the more science-based schools or business-based schools, so they can also spread the word there that we are more than willing to have their work looked at by us, and we even encourage it.
I think the idea of working with Goldberg, the library, is a really good one. They always want to do things, and they're very interested in getting behind anything you would want to do. They just love the idea of coordinated programs. I think the challenge is increasing the amount of submissions we get.
Right.
And you know that as well as anyone else. So I wonder, is there any ideas you have beyond just kind of, selecting a representative? Do you think it's just advertising and marketing?
I think the only thing yes.
Does he need to say the question? Or are you going to pick that up?
It should be able to pick that up.
Okay. Okay.
But if you want, just for the safety's sake, just kind of repeat the question.
Yeah, so you're asking how to broaden our outreach besides just representatives?
Yeah.
I think the most important thing to do is advertising and marketing. As of right now, I don't know or can't think of any other way to be able to broaden our outreach other than, like I said, emails, representatives, more events. Just word of mouth, I think, is one of the biggest ways that we can advertise ourselves, because we can't necessarily advertise anywhere outside of Duquesne because we can only take submissions
You can advertise them
from.
in the Duke.
Yeah, and
Sort of have an informal agreement that the publications get free ads, but.
Some years it's honored more than other years.
Oh, yeah.
No, I
See
hope
me if
so.
it's not honored, I'll arm twist, but, as I think they should, I think that we should have the ability of the publications to promote what they're doing.
yeah, I love that transparency between every publication. And it would not only help Lexicon, but it would help everybody else, I think, as well.
Absolutely.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Awesome.
One question I have is, the perennial question of what do you do with controversial material?
Mhm.
Sometimes it does come across the transom that we get something that might be considered controversial.
Right, especially in poetry.
Yeah.
My idea with that is, why not? Because why wouldn't you publish it? Because as long as it can come under an agreement that the editors think it was done well and that the general staff thinks that it was done well, I don't see any problem publishing a piece that might be seen controversial to anybody or to Duquesne, because it's not our job to censor anybody. It's our job to publish what people want to publish.
The sensitivity comes in all, you see it being in line with the mission of the university. So,
Mhm.
for example, there would be probably a prohibition against publishing something that's racist or
Right.
anti-Semitic, or that would really be in violation of Duquesne's mission. But I'm not sure what you mean by controversial.
Well-
For example.
I think some people might consider, I don't, I'm just saying what might come up.
Yeah.
Some people might consider certain language controversial.
Okay. Mhm.
Some people might consider certain topics, whether it was abortion or whatever,
Mhm.
controversial in a nonfiction essay, because we publish nonfiction as well.
Right.
So I think, it's, I'm just kind of curious how you would kind of approach that, and I hear what you're saying.
As for language, as long as it's not used for the sake of being used, I have no problem with publishing some more risque language, if you'd like to call it that. Content-wise, like you had said, if there's anything racist or something like that, if it's coming after a certain body of people, be it at Duquesne or in general, in a negative way, not that you can necessarily talk about racism in a positive way, but if you're looking at it, if it's coming after people insulting somebody, be it racism or any other topic, I would not feel comfortable publishing that because you're directly targeting a group of people at Duquesne, in the city, in the state. It goes much further than that, and I don't think that would be a good representation of either us or the university. If that answers your question.
Yes.
Good.
So I guess you've been poetry editor.
I have.
And so you've worked a lot with the content,
Mhm.
and this is a job that's much more managerial, organizational, and you can tell me if I'm right here, that it's a little bit move away from content and more kind of management of people.
Right.
So I'm just curious how you feel about that, and this is something you want to do, clearly.
From a managerial standpoint, I have no problem with that. As long as I can remember, I've been a natural leader, someone that always likes to take charge. I'm, involved in other organizations on campus as well as I have been in high school, where I've been in charge of people, and I have no problem, having to work with large groups or large or small groups, things like that. And getting away from the content wouldn't be too much of a problem for me. I'll try as hard as I can to read what's submitted and look over, be it art, photography, anything like that. But all in all, I mean, I do not have a problem with managing people. I can't. Yeah, I don't. That's like I don't know how much you elaborate on that. Yeah, no, I understand what you were trying to say, and I appreciate the question.
Well, because I think a lot of people apply for these kinds of jobs thinking they're going to be the grand editor sitting
Yeah.
with their pen and working with text all day, and I just don't think that's what you do, right? You know, so.
But I will say, I think, I don't think you're going away from the content necessarily, because personally, I think I do have a lot of involvement as, like, into what goes into the journal.
Right.
But I think it's more of a question of, do you feel comfortable balancing, managing that aspect of, like, what are we publishing, along with what are all my section editors doing, and is everyone doing everything they're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I don't think I have a problem with having to manage people. As of right now, I do have one assistant. I work relatively closely with him, so I have some sort of preview into what it would be to delegate and to manage somebody else. And as you well know, I've worked closely with all the other editors for the last 2 years. Been very involved and worked with you closely this past year, and helped make some sort of like bigger decisions and worked with everybody.
To clarify, he is a poetry assistant editor,
Okay.
just for everyone. who-
Oh yeah.
Not just like a random assistant.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
Unless you want to speak to maybe, I mean, you kind of already went through this, unless you want to just speak to like what you've done, just as like a general, you kind of already alluded to like how you've been involved with the organization, but unless you want to like go over like kind of what you've done over the past 2 years.
Yeah, sure. I started, so what I've done the last 2 years, I started on the general staff, went to fiction, art, poetry. I don't believe I got any nonfiction or drama that year, but I would have gone if there was. I went to those meetings, I saw what all that was about. I applied, I believe, my second semester for the assistant poetry position. I was given that. I worked closely with the poetry editor as well as the other editors. At the end of last year, I was promoted to the poetry editor. And then we as editors selected an assistant for myself, and I've been working closely with him, so I've done that. So that's my progression through poetry, and now I'm here. I've also helped coordinate the art show, come up with ideas for the art show posters, and helped, come up with ideas for those. I've just done general, like, housekeeping for Lexicon, and I believe that about covers it.
So you're a junior now?
I'm a sophomore.
You're a sophomore now?
Yes.
Well, we probably should cut it because
Yeah.
we have to take the